Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Accuracy in America, brought to you by Accuracy in Academia. We're on episode 348. So, welcome, everybody. I'm Don Irvine, your host, joined by my co host, Brian McNichol.
Good morning, everybody. I've now fallen behind Don in the haircut cycle.
Yeah, I mean, my haircut. So it'd been like 3 months. My wife always cuts my hair, and she'd been sick and all this busy, and my hair now, I think it's because of the radiation I had or whatever. When it gets long, it curls at the end.
Yeah, I've heard that.
So it's like it's weird effects of when you get treatments like that. Is that I'm glad I have the hair I have. Still,
that's right, because a lot of people lose it all.
Right.
Lose all their hair.
Yeah. So are you wearing an LSU shirt?
I am wearing an LSU shirt. Got it for Christmas from my sister. She gave it to me Christmas. My sister is an elite. Angela is an elite gift giver. She's one of those people like you don't see her. Oh, I'm very concerned about your well-being, right? But like she's watching and she's like, oh, he needs an LSU shirt. And she also gave me a little LSU frame for my license plate. So she keeps me. I'm not using that yet. Don't anybody tell her, because I'm trying to get a new car and I want to put it on the new car, not the old one. So.
Yeah, I mean, if you put it on the old car, then you'd have to remember how to transfer it to the new car. So.
That's right.
Yeah, which is usually
sometimes you sell those old cars and you take off running. You don't want to go back and get your license plate.
This is it. I got the money. You got the car. We're done.
Adios.
You'll never see me again. I am
before you look any closer.
And all that. So last week was National Bobblehead Day, right? And we were doing this thing. So it was kind of funny because I was sitting in my basement and I looked down and I found this. Wait a minute.
There it is.
So this is an Alex Rodriguez bobblehead.
From when he was a Ranger, it looks like.
When he was a Ranger. And I have, for the life of me, I have no idea how I got that thing.
Wow.
So at least I've got a guy who was a juicer, right?
Yeah, he was.
I don't know. Is that anybody out there want to offer me something for this? I got to.
The only thing I will say about Alex Rodriguez is, he signed a 10-year, $256 million contract.
252
to go to Texas.
Right.
Now you think about that. That when was that? That was 20 years ago or more, right?
Yeah.
That happened. And that's still a pretty handsome contract. You think about it, inflation has wiped out. Has really changed like how players are getting paid. But I mean, that would be a good haul today, right? For what he had done, and so you have to hand it to his manager, his agent or whatnot, because they got him a 2025 deal, in the 25 or 30 years ago.
Yeah, that was a shocking contract, I think, to a lot of the baseball world, because a 10-year deal.
Yeah.
250, so the average annual value was $25 million a year. That was really unheard of to go that long and everything like that. Now he wound up getting traded, right, to the Yankees, and everything. But I don't know, I still kind of like Alex Rodriguez. I mean, I think I know, his career is going to be tainted just like, Rafi, Palmeiro and, Bonds and Clemens and things like that. But I don't know. For whatever reason, Rodriguez is out of that group. Who else we have there? Mark McGuire. Those guys. I still think Rodriguez is still my favorite out of those guys. I've kind of got into that whole steroid era, which is blocking their path to the Hall of Fame.
Yeah. I can't. My wife's in the next room, so I can't say anything good about Alex Rodriguez. She's Mariner fan. They're not over it.
She's so mad.
But you were talking about Palmeiro. I will tell you one quick thing. So when I got to the Hill, they had just done the baseball steroid hearings, right? All but Clemens. I was there for Clemens, but before me, they had McGuire and Sosa and Palmeiro and all them up there. And so they had subpoenaed, they told me they had subpoenaed Palmeiro, and they said, you got such and such a date to turn in your 5-minute opening statement. And, here's what it should include and so forth. And, so they send him subpoena and they, tell him all this stuff. And so he, they don't hear from him. Day before the hearing, they called him and said, hey, we sent you this subpoena and, we're waiting on this opening statement and all that. And he goes, well, that's my wife's birthday tomorrow. And I promised I'd take her down to the Eastern Shore for lunch. So I'm not going to be able to make it to the hearing. And so the counsel for the committee said, call your lawyer and tell him that you have been subpoenaed to appear before Congress tomorrow. And is that okay? And call us back and tell us what he says. Just find out, what he thinks of this. And he calls back and he's like, I'll get that statement to you as quickly as I can. Because, the lawyer explained to him, no, you're not going to celebrate Mom's birthday tomorrow. You're going to be before Congress. So.
Yeah. Excuse me. I can't testify because I got to take care of my wife or whatever.
Yeah. Like, nice try, but we don't do that.
All right. We're
good morning. Good morning, Bob.
We're
passed through Slidell the other day. I was going too fast. I wasn't able to stop, but I was thinking about
you. Where we go. Yeah. Well, we miss Bob. He hasn't been commenting here for the last couple of weeks at least, I guess it was, or whatever. All right. So I did, before we get into the main topics, I did double check. I've been trying to, one of the things I've been trying to do is just trying to keep an eye on the trade, the deficit, as well as our debt, national debt. And so there's, at least I found an update now from the Treasury Department on the deficit. So we're at $602 billion for the first 3 months of the fiscal year, October, November, December, and that's down 15% from a year ago. So moving in the right direction.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right. The tariff income, and we, you're getting more jobs now. Unemployment's coming down, wages are going up. I looked it up. I think what you said on the wage growth is closer to accurate than what I said last week. It moved up that amount, but it's not that amount because it was, you know what I mean? So anyway, I read something and my little brain didn't. But anyway, but wages are going up. Not as much as I said before, but they are going up. And inflation, we had another month of 2.7. Now I think that, Powell's, and part of what's going on with Powell, he got these subpoenas and he's all upset. Jerome Powell, the head of the Fed, he's all upset, but it's kind of time for him to take action if he wants to get the heat off of him. And you can say, Trump's running this like a mob operation or whatever, and people are saying that they're mad about it, whatever. But what he's saying is, if you want the heat off, you really don't have a textual argument against lowering rates now. I guess like a full basis point of rate reduction.
Well, so here the thing is, okay, look, the Fed has already lowered interest rates by 175 basis points over the last couple of years. We're now getting to the point of where you've got to give some strong economic information to be able to push that lower. Inflation is basically still kind of stuck, and the data we have is not bad. It's still, it has a hole in it because October was a loss. And so October's input was a 0. So it doesn't quite, we're still going to have a little bit of a bumpy thing, but, I'll take the numbers as I can get them for now. And I guess Wall Street is satisfied with what we're getting on that. Unemployment number coming down a little bit, but, we're still seeing layoffs and things like that. There isn't, we're just kind of in this period where you have to kind of watch out that you don't want to pull the trigger and lower interest rates more and then all of a sudden set off some kind of recession. Now, I think we can probably still go a little bit lower, but I think think it needs to. I think they just have to play it really cautiously because they have chopped off a pretty big chunk already. And if they take this in small bites, that might be just fine. But the economy is just kind of, it's there. It's we had some good numbers, but we have some other parts of the economy that are just having a problem. I mean, so on Jerome Powell, Trump is just he's got the long knives out for him. This is a guy he appointed. He's changed his mind on him. We know that Powell will not get reappointed when his term expires this year. So he's a lame duck.
About that, his term doesn't expire this year. His term as chairman expires this year.
His term as chairman, but he stays on the Fed board. Right. Yeah. He can stay. He can stay on the Fed board, but his term as a chairman expires this year. Plus, I mean, the Fed governors. I mean, the Open Market Committee can stick their tongue out or whatever at Trump, and they could appoint Powell to a higher to chair like the Federal Open Market Committee, and that would just kind of stick it right in the eye of Trump because he can't really touch these things. I think
right.
Trump
Which
just needs
is also
to
kind of a problem. You have this thing that as a I mean, I think it's time to prime the economy. I think this is time to like kick the dominoes over and make it roll, because of some of the stuff you talked about.
Yeah,
I mean, inflation it fell to 2.7. Which, do what? Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm the guy who's just like, look, the economy is doing okay, but President Trump, he doesn't need to be interfering with this part of the economy. I mean, the Federal Reserve, as much as I have some disdain for it, I do have ties to it, obviously, through my father, who had worked for it for a number of years. So, his big complaint was that it had grown too big, and everything like that. But, the way Trump is going about doing this, the whole thing about the Eccles building and stuff like that, I mean, this is just a lot. Okay. I was having trouble earlier with my connection. I don't know if it's going to be a spotty day today or not.
So you were saying, so what I'm saying is, like you said, inflation fell to 2.7, then it stayed at 2.7. So I'm not, it's like, to me, the economy's primed to leap into action. You have the Atlanta Fed has predicted 5.1% growth for the quarter, or 5.3 or something like that. So I think the economy is ready for some legit juice to take off. But either way, I'm not comfortable that this unelected, untouchable, can't even mess with their budget agency, wields this power over the economy. I want the power in the hands of the people I voted for. They may get it wrong. They frequently do, but then we have the power to change it and make it what we think should be right. So, if we really believe in the wisdom of the people, then we shouldn't really believe in the Fed.
Well, I mean,
go ahead.
I'm going to say, I mean, the argument on the Fed, I mean, though, it's just been, it's been more pronounced because things, are not going the way that the president wants. And, it's been a tougher time. The pandemic, kind of changed, the scenario. We've been trying to get inflation under control. We've got it about half of what it was during the Biden term. So we're in a better situation than we were there, but it's still there, still considerably high, still higher than it was, pre-Biden, pre-pandemic. And so, but before that, we had gotten very used to very low interest rates, basically at zero for the most part, and that was a good thing for the economy, was to have those low interest rates in general. But it definitely reduced the economy. But inflation comes into play. Interest rates get ratcheted up to try to cool inflation, and they haven't been able to find the right balance between what is the number on interest rates that will continue to allow the economy to grow, but at the same time not reinflate inflation above where they are now. They want to get that number down to 2. That was been their target for years, but they've just had a hard time doing it. And that, I mean, that's the number one enemy in this whole thing is inflation. The Fed has been lowering interest rates, but because of the changes in the economy, where you would think that, okay, well, mortgage interest rates would drop significantly. They haven't. People are locked into some cheap, housing, some interest rates.
They're
My
coming
son.
down now, though, and there's more mortgages going out the door now than any time in the last 8 or 10 years.
Yeah, but I mean, it's not like it was before. You're still about easily double what they were before. My son's got a sub 3% mortgage, interest rate. He's not going to give that up. Okay, it just and go and get a house at 6 or 6.5 or whatever. I mean that becomes unaffordable. So we have this mobility issue where things are just kind of stuck. Why would you want to go and spend more unless you absolutely positively had to move for a job and you had no choice, but you had to go and do that, then you go and do that. But otherwise, the mobility, the kind of thing, the pattern of where we had, older people selling their homes, moving to another state, and then basically opened up a home while they were going to go lower their cost of living. These things are different. I mean, Florida has been kind of the golden paradise, right, for retirees. Well, retirees are finding out that, due to a lot of different factors, not so much anymore. And we have people moving. You have some people moving out of, Florida. The people on the kind of the lower side of the income scale. They're now having to they're moving to South Carolina, or they move to Arkansas or Alabama or things like that, because what's happened, and this is nothing new, because of all the storms and everything like that they've had over the years, homeowners insurance has gone through the roof, property taxes have gone way up. And so
I saw a list recently. It was along those lines. It was about the 10 best places to retire, and like 9 of them, I think, were cold weather places. Scranton, Wilkes-Barre. It's like, I don't know if I want to deal with that when I'm 85 up there. Yeah, but I mean, it was on the list. There was a bunch of them on there. There's a lot to do in Scranton. We were up there for basketball last summer a couple of times, and it was pretty good. It was not a bad place.
Yeah, all I remember about my trip to Scranton, because I was there to speak to some young Republicans, which I don't know why I took that trip. Driving up there for that small group was just, in hindsight, was not worth it. But I know my wife took our kids to, there's like a train museum up there and stuff like that. But I mean, I'm talking over 30 years ago. Things continue to grow, develop, and change over that period of time. I would be kind of curious as to how it looks today versus 35 years ago or whatever it's been. But anyway, my point is just that there's a fight going on there. I mean, Trump, if he's just patient, Powell's term as the Fed chair will be over. He can put his own guy in there. He's already been kind of, with Stephen Murrin on there, they've already kind of got the momentum to move towards lower interest rates. You're seeing in the open market committee minutes that there is, it's kind of gravitating toward that. And so the more chances he gets to put people on there, the better. I just don't think the president needs to get directly involved. You can go ahead and appoint your people and let them do the policy making, but you yourself, all this public relations stuff, battling with the Powell and stuff like that. There are other bigger fish to fry, though. Then again, sometimes I wonder. Once again, Trump is good at diversion, right? And it's like, let's talk about this while this is going on. In the meantime, I'm going to be doing this while you guys are all focused on this fight. And whatnot. But he has, as I've listed here, I mean, since we're on these subjects, I mean, I think Trump has fallen into the affordability trap of the Democrats. The Democrats have been going affordability, 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 and I don't really think that that was getting a whole lot of traction necessarily. But
Yeah, they've
now,
dropped it because
yeah,
like you don't really have the inflation's falling, gas prices are falling. It's like it wasn't really a good move by Democrats to talk about affordability because Trump, by the time of the election, Trump's going to be able to point to a lot of things he's made more affordable.
but that's the thing though. So, but this is a message of the Democrats. This is the things that Trump is doing, or at least announcing, proposing, are more Bernie Sanders AOC than free market principles and let things go and develop, and let other policy tweaks, guide your way into that. This, he has this thing about, he attacked the corporate ownership of homes. They don't,
Right. They're
that,
capping the executive pay and
yeah, but I mean,
but they sound good, but really that's not free market principles. And there's a reason that's not free market principles is those things don't work.
Yeah, but look, I mean, the companies that have been buying homes and renting homes to people, out of the overall housing stock in the U.S., it's very small. There's some areas like the
But in
Phoenix,
some areas it's
big, it's
everything.
huge.
Yeah.
But supply and demand will also determine what you're going to be able to charge for that. So, Phoenix is an area where they've got a lot of that, but Phoenix is also an area where they've got a lot of apartments, and they're so overbuilt. The landlords are throwing money basically at tenants. But they're saying, get free rent, here's gift cards. They're struggling to fill their apartments. And I would venture to guess that there's probably been a dramatic slowdown in home rentals because of the same problems, that you've got too many homes for too few people at this point in time. And so, the market forces are going to take care of that. In other areas, it's a minuscule thing, and it really doesn't do anything. Plus, Trump floated this thing about Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac going to buy, all these mortgages or whatever. Problem there is that they actually don't have the capital to do that right now, so it's kind of a non-starter.
Yeah.
But
you don't want that anyway.
He throws that out there. I mean, this the other day. I mean, this whole thing about capping, credit card interest rates. That's a Bernie Sanders AOC thing. That is price control Kamala Harris. That is not the way it works. And you will choke off borrowing and change dramatically. You will actually do more damage by doing that. And whether or not he has the authority, I have no idea.
Right. And I think a lot of this stuff like that, like the capping the pay, capping the credit card rates and all, the end of the process is the announcement. Right. Once he announces it, then, everyone debates it. It happens or never happens. No one ever knows. But a lot of this stuff, he gives it one shove and then that's it. So, I think someone's probably talked to him about the credit card, capping the credit cards and capping CEO pay. And I don't think you'll see any legislation for it or, a regulatory push to make it happen.
Yeah, and I don't think
he's trying to sound, like he's cares about these problems, and he's offering solutions that seem tailored to him and seem to fit and so forth. And it's interesting that, like, the thing about it is like, it doesn't make people like me and you happy. And, none of those people are going to change their mind and vote for Trump. Well, he's capping CEO pay. I've always wanted CEO pay capped. Who is that voter? Where is that person? So, I mean, you got to think about like what really moves votes. Well, now if you look at it, the other hand, you keep hearing about these generic ballots, this and that, and the other. I mean, registration is going up for Republicans in every state. They're gaining on Republicans in every state. For a little bit in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, where they had some contested elections, hot elections, election for governor and so forth in New Jersey. It's congressional elections and so forth in Pennsylvania. The Democrats ticked up briefly in registration totals. But since those elections have ended, it's gone back hardcore Republican. So, all these people may be planning to vote Democrat, but they're signing up to be Republicans. like in
Yeah.
huge numbers. It's, it's a big shift. It's probably, we've gone from 35 Democrat, 33 Republican to probably the other way around.
Yeah, we'll see how that if that trend continues on here throughout the rest of the year. It's going to be an interesting year. We've got just under 10 months before the midterms, and lots of stuff that will happen between now and then.
Yep.
But hopefully that's really it. Trump's announcement is really the beginning and the end of what really happens there, because I don't even think that Scott Bessent is necessarily on the same page with some of this. I mean, I do think that Trump sometimes throws his people for a little bit of a loop. They're like, "What did he say? What did you do?"
Yeah. Where'd that come from?
Yeah.
It also shows you that Trump is thinking for himself, right? It's not this collaboration of advisors like it was with Biden, where it's all been, poll tested and bullet pointed and all that stuff. It's like he's looking at things and developing solutions to himself to them. And sometimes it's half cocked and sometimes it needs to be walked back, right? But a lot of times it becomes good policy. So,
well, I mean, you're right about that part of it. Because like Trump does what no other president has done except for himself, right? I mean, there isn't another president that actually will propose these things without a lot of time spent with the advisors.
right.
But Trump, thanks to Truth Social, he just blurts things out
Pops
there.
It right out there. It sure does.
Yeah, it just comes out there, and then everybody's got to deal with the aftermath of that. And some of it, okay, I'm glad you said some of it is half cocked, because it is, and then some of it's good. I mean, it's one of those things. I mean, he is making some progress, but he clouds it a little bit when he goes and he tries to do these other things in an effort to try to maybe capture some votes or blunt the Democrats. But I mean, I think Bernie Sanders and AOC would then be like, oh yeah, great, we want to hold you to that. I don't think Trump is going to say, I'm going to fight, I'm going to die on that hill of 10% credit card interest rates, because it's just untenable for the bank. They cannot extend credit to people at that rate.
And who do they cut off? So they've got to charge 10% or less, right? So they're going to have to cut some people out, right? And so you're going to, the same people you're talking about being unbanked now, and Trump is, he's done some stuff to prevent banks from unbanking people for political reasons or whatever, which I think is a very good measure, right? It's the same sort of pocket of issues, but that's a very good step that he took. You're going to get more unbanked, right? Because you're going to have people that, are barely worth the risk now, but wouldn't be worth the risk then. Right.
So anyway, so we've covered the economic side more or less. We may go back to, I don't know. Let's, I forgot. It's National Hot Pastrami Day. Just as an inside, pastrami, does it matter?
That's heartburn.
I don't know. I tend to think of this as a New York thing.
Yeah. I agree. However, there's a place in Shreveport that it's called Fertitas, and they have these, what they call muffalettas, which is the sandwich. And it's got all this, that olives and stuff. And it has different Italian cold cuts and so forth. And it's really a signature sandwich, a thing to behold, and one of the best things I've ever eaten.
Yeah, I think if you're going to a real deli, I mean, there's certain things like pastrami and stuff like that. You kind of want to have there, like a genuine New York deli or whatever. But I haven't been to one of those in decades, I think.
Yeah, I hear you. They stack it up so high. It's like
right. Yeah. No, big thick sandwiches.
I was 18. I thought that was like the bomb. Things are different now.
Yeah, very, very different. Very different. All right. Well, one of the other things that we talk internationally is that Iran. It's just we're seeing street protests. I mean, the government has been retaliating. There's been estimated 2,500 people are dead now. I guess it's the Shah's son. Is that correct? Is kind of involved in some of this, and Trump is out there at the forefront too, talking about how things are, and threats about bombing Iran and
going. Shah's son lives, right?
Yeah.
He lives in Potomac. Yeah, yeah. So for Tito's and Central Grocery, it's like the same. The people who've been to both.
All right, so I will have to make a note of this. I have no idea when this
this is one we're trying, even for you. You'd like it. If you're ever down that way.
Yeah. Okay. See, I need, in order to, when you're going to eat stuff like this, you need the locals to tell you where the best places are.
Yeah.
And you head down there. So like, yeah, I want that, but where's the best place to get it? So I'll have to make a note of that. Thank you, Bob, for that. But Iran, yeah, I mean, the Shah's son, this is interesting. I mean, this is what was it? The fall was what, 1979 or earlier?
79.
Yeah. 79.
Yeah,
So this has been a long time. The citizens in Iran have lived under a brutal dictatorship for a long time, and I don't know. And was the government in Iran, was the regime, were they caught off guard by by how fast this turned around and how many people turned out? But
they knew they lost the support of Carter to do. The Shah lost the support of Carter to do the stuff to keep the mullahs and their people in line. And as soon as he did, they overran the government in the country. They've ruled it ever since. And they've taken a Western type society, prosperous, at all classes and so forth, and turned it into a dirt poor country where they're energy starved despite sitting on some of the largest oil reserves on the planet. They can't get running water. Schools have been closed for months. It's just fallen to the point where the people can't stand it anymore. So they're close to getting the government off their back, but they're not yet. The government's still in control. We keep wanting to make that announcement that it has fallen and so forth, and they seem willing to reinstall the son. The son, I guess he would be getting installed because he wasn't the first time, but. The son's been, I guess he left the country, went to Europe at first, and then he's moved. He lived in Montgomery County for like most of the last 25, 30 years. Lives in Potomac somewhere right near Avenel. So, I think we're all hopeful, right? The right thing will happen. The right people will get in charge. We stand ready to help when it happens. Trump's talking about going in and like applying the finishing touches to make this happen. If we can possibly avoid this that's the thing about it, like Venezuela, right? We got Maduro out of there, and he was the guy who held all this together. And there's been the criticism that his vice president is now in charge, and a lot of his people are still in power, right? Because we want a government that comes in by winning an election and showing competence and showing it's ready to take over. Not that it was installed by the United States. So it requires a little more patience. The same thing used to happen in Iran, where it looks like the people overthrew it. I think it's a little less burden there because I think the people they're all convinced of who the bad guys are. And I think that I hope that it is quick and ending and that we don't have to get involved.
Yeah. So, one of my questions here too is just that, politically, with the midterm election coming up here later this year, does a situation in Venezuela, what we did there, does what's happening in Iran and whatever involvement we may have there, the Democrats, scream to the high heavens, and, we hear war powers, we hear all this kind of thing, and form Congress, all this kind of stuff. But politically, for the Republicans and for President Trump, will this have any real effect, come November?
Well, I mean, I think that wow. So it's hard to explain because that's interesting because it hasn't been. We've heard that they were about to fall. 10 times in the last 10 or 15 years. The government of Iran almost fall, just about to fall. Support collapsed. People are all bad. Protests in the streets, and then nothing ever happens. So, for somebody to say who studies this to say that we're closer than ever is good. Is news making a bit. So, I hope that's true. Now, your question was.
politically, does this matter? I mean, coming toward election for the Republicans for Trump.
Well, the Democrats keep saying it doesn't matter, which means it probably does matter. Americans like to see their foreign policy be strong, and they like to see, the American values expressed on the world stage vigorously. I think that you got to kind of pick your battles there. Maduro is a kind of easy winner. Everybody hates him, and can tell that, that he's a bad guy, although some of them said he didn't deserve it. Right. These guys, I think it's going to be hard to argue that we should be pro mullahs, after all that's happened. So, but, he's talked about, bombing the cartels in Mexico. I don't think we've done that. That's the kind of thing that could, you start doing this hyperactively, you could risk losing a lot of public opinion. So do you gain a lot of public opinion? Well, I mean, it looks like you're keeping your promises for what that's worth. But no, I mean, I think that, what people end up voting on is domestic issues. That's almost always true.
Right. And I think that is true. I think in the long run that, it's going to be economics that'll have a large sway on the midterms in terms of where are we. The Wall Street Journal was reporting that, wage growth, has slowed dramatically, and so that's why fighting inflation is going to be really important. And that's why people's minds, I mean, it's how people feel, in terms of why am I getting squeezed? Why can't I afford things? Well, if their wages aren't keeping up, then they feel that they start to see this. It starts to distance themselves from more, right? You just have things get a little more expensive while your wages are trailing a little bit, so that gap continues to widen. I listened to a lot of business podcasts, and there was one of the anchors, I guess she had moved from DC to New York. And New York groceries are very different, right? Because
right.
There's a lot of bodegas. You don't have they don't have
Safeway.
you don't have a lot of the big grocery stores, especially in the city. You just don't have the land for it. You have to be further out. And this she went to the store to buy eggs, and they were $12 a dozen. And she was just like, she says, I put the eggs back. Okay. We live in the DMV. We know things are generally kind of expensive here, but we don't have eggs that are selling for $12.
Right.
But when you're dealing with a lot of the small mom and pops, the bodegas, their cost structure is very different. They don't have bulk volume buying and all this kind of stuff. So it's kind of a tough situation. I'm glad that that's interesting what Bob says about the whole thing about studying this. When you think about it, you think that's probably right. I mean, if you kind of just do a flash memory check, so this is the biggest uprising that could have sustained effect that could actually topple a regime. I think the regime here in Iran just wasn't well prepared for this. And if you're out there and you've now killed 2,500 of your people, this is another problem for you, because they're facing, and you've got Trump already saying, hey, look, we're going to be able to do finishing touches. They're okay, this is a problem.
Right. So yeah. So in terms of the one way that it can really help Trump electorally is, if you're stacking a lot of these accomplishments up, like we did, we snatched Maduro, we've restored democracy to Venezuela, we've prosecuted the vote fixers there, we've toppled the government in Iran, we've cleaned up the Gaza problem, we've taken care of Russia and Ukraine. By the midterms, that's a pretty good stack, right? And you say, each individual one move the needle? Maybe not, but a big old stack of foreign policy successes will. And on the subject of of Ukraine, they destroyed an air base with drones the other night in Russia. They destroyed 40 Russian Air Force planes, fighter jets. So they're doing stuff that Ukraine did not seem capable of doing just a few months ago. So how did this new capability arrive? Well, I think that Trump is like, he's done talking to Putin, right? He got frustrated dealing with Putin, so he is surging Iraq. He's surging Ukraine. He's giving them the tools they need to win the war, and he is authorizing striking deep in Russia. This thing that they knocked over was several hundred miles inside of Russia. So, I think that he's changed his tune on this, and that we're not public about it, but he's helping because he doesn't want to start World War III. But he's helping Zelensky do serious damage to the Russians, and X amount of damage, X amount of destroying infrastructure. They've knocked out like 4 of the 7 big oil refineries in Russia. They've knocked out a bunch of fighter jets and so forth. That starts to make a difference in how he can prosecute the war. They're not beating him. They're not knocking him out of Donetsk or whatever, but they are making it more difficult for Putin to dominate in Ukraine when he has these other problems at home.
Right. Okay. Back to the. Well, I guess one more thing before we move on too was just a quickie there with Machado she's been trying to give the Nobel Prize to Trump, but the committee's basically blocked her. Look, if you want to, look, you could physically give him the trophy or whatever the prize. You don't have to have it officially like being transferred.
Right. That's the thing. Just give him the trophy.
Right.
Then then it's like ignore those people.
Right.
I the winner. I'm telling you, the most peace promoting person in the world was this guy. Here's your trophy, sir. Shake hands. What a press event for Trump.
Trump even could give her some money under the table. Look at all those Hollywood stars that have sold their Oscars over the years and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, and now, now you're to the point where she's not going to get it, and basically Trump made it where she would not be the leader of Venezuela, right? So because now he's got it, we're going to do this holdover government on. Yeah, that's right. This holdover government, then we're going to have an election and it won't include you, right? So, you may have thought you won the election and you should be in, but you're not in. And she's still saying give him the Peace Prize. That tells you that he's probably on the right track.
Yeah. So I thought it was kind of funny, but yeah, like I think we're in agreement. Just look, if you want to give him the prize, give him the prize.
Yeah.
Don't worry about what Oslo says. In terms of you can't officially transfer that. Fine, it shows up on the books as that she won it, but it just happens to be in Trump's possession. He can. Yeah. It's a PR thing. He can do whatever.
Put it up in the Oval and show everybody who comes in.
Go along with everything else that's gold or whatever, I guess. Yeah. So anyway, all right.
Do it like he can put the little trophy on the Saban always had a Coca-Cola because I guess Coca-Cola sponsors him, and after every Alabama game he's standing there with this Coca-Cola talking to the press. Coca-Cola never opened. There's just one Coke sitting there, or a Dasante water because they're also owned by Coke. So every press conference, just plop your trophy down. Questions?
Yeah, this is the thing. Can you just envisioning Trump getting that prize, that whatever whatever it looks, and then using it on social media or whatever thing like this. The Nobel Peace Prize committee will be they'll go crazy. The liberals will be going crazy. That's worth it to me.
Yeah. They'll try to revoke it from her. It's like, revoke this, buddy. Go get it out of the Oval.
You gave it to me. You come and get it. And guess what? If the president of the United States has got it, you're gonna have a hard time getting it from them.
Go get it out of the Oval. Just go. You just go take it back. March in there. See what happens.
Oh my gosh. All right. Back home, we've had this big ice blow up here. This woman, her name was Renee Good, shot and killed by an ICE agent. There's so many videos and stories and everything like this. The bottom line for me in general really is that she's out practicing an act of civil disobedience. So that's a problem then and there. Okay. And he's like, I don't think she's stupid in the sense that knowing that there are risks. You use your car and you're blocking the ICE agents and stuff like that. You have elevated, the whole situation to rather than just sitting in the street, and and yelling and blowing a whistle and whatnot. I mean, the left with all their whistles and stuff like that, and all their warning systems, it's just like, oh, please give me a break, uh, with all that. But the other thing is like, it's Minneapolis, it's George Floyd territory. It's like she's now going to become another martyr like George Floyd. It's like, oh well, it's like it's I don't know. It's just kind of a ridiculous scenario here. But anyway, your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts are kind of harsh. I think that she did try to run him over. I mean, I think if you look at the video from the front, and there's all this, oh, he stepped to the side. Well, heck yeah, the car's coming at you, you step to the side. And if you try to kill a cop, he's going to try to kill you, and he's going to keep shooting. They're trained to keep shooting until you're all the way dead, right? They don't, this. Oh, why did he shoot 3 times? They don't want you wounded, right? They don't want you, right? They want you dead, right? Once they decide to shoot you, they want you all the way dead. So he didn't do anything that he wasn't trained to do. The department's already said that. I don't even think he's going to face disciplinary action, let alone any kind of criminal trial for this. Don't mess with the police. The other thing is like, if you want to change the law, go to the people who make the law. Go to Congress. Go get there, sit there with the pink ladies, and try to yell at every congressman who walks in and out of the thing. Follow them down the street, yelling at them like they do, all that kind of stuff. Because they feel that pressure and they go and change the law. But right now, the law says these people are in the country illegally, and we have the right to go find them and take them out of the country just for being here, not for being here and doing anything, just for being here. The other thing is, if these communities did not make themselves into sanctuary cities, they would not have nearly as many of these problems, right? They would hand over the truly bad guys. That's right. They would hand over the truly bad guys straight to the cops. They've already been searched and cuffed, and it's all safe. And they would hand them over to ICE, and ICE would get the truly bad guys out of the country. So as a result of them being jerks about that and saying sanctuary cities, you have these people going through the streets of America looking for the illegals to take them out. But they would not have to do that if there were not sanctuary cities. They would just, most of those people, and you say you realize almost half of them have no criminal record. Okay, so more than half of them do, right? More than half of the people who come in illegally have a criminal record. Stop and think about that. You're talking about 20 million people, 10 million of them have a criminal record, okay, of some kind. So they say the worst of the worst. Okay, that's fine. Let's start with the murderers and the rapists, those guys first, and then we can get to the burglars, and then we can talk about what to do about the people who have been here, but 5-10 years, but they just got a job and went to work and didn't bother anybody. Okay, because that's kind of a different conversation, and I think a lot of people on both sides of the political aisle would be willing to have that conversation and to say, all right, what do we do about people who have been here a long time and haven't caused us any trouble? But as long as you're fighting us in the streets over getting the worst of the worst out, then, whoever gets in the way, they're also going to get taken out, right? That's what half these people who are getting taken out, who they didn't do anything, they just came here illegally, right? They're getting in the way of enforcement actions against really bad people. So get out of the way. Let the cops do what they're going to do. And then you will not, and give them the people who they have detainers on. And then you will not have any of these problems in your streets. But the idea is not to avoid problems in the streets, right? The idea is to create problems in the streets that make Trump look bad, right? This is all about how much they hate Trump, right? They don't care about the country. They don't care about you. They don't care about the economy. They don't care about any of that stuff. They care about hating Trump and nothing else.
Yeah, I mean, it's just another fire that they lit. I mean, it's this is Black Lives Matter and all these kind of things. A repeat of all these events. They want to get a chance to go and make Trump look bad, or they want to get a chance to go and just create havoc and whatnot. And that's what they do. I mean, and how many of these guys are being paid to do this too, right? I mean, this is also part of the left strategy, is that we'll pay you to go out there and blow that whistle, yell, stomp, scream at ICE, do all these things. So It's a very coordinated effort.
That must have been these people's jobs. It doesn't seem like they were doing anything else for a living.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, yeah, that's the left always can find unemployed people. Geez, I wonder how. Why?
Yeah. How about that?
Geez, that's amazing how you managed to get all these people out here. All right, as we get around the bend here, Supreme Court has been hearing oral arguments on this transgender sports issue. The reports, I guess, we're getting saying that the justices, at least the conservative justices, are looking favorably upon the argument to ban the transgender sports. This this is something that that President Trump obviously would be very happy with, as well as a lot of conservatives, as well. Yes, it doesn't look good for the pro-trans side on this one.
So I have some friends on the far left that are on this one too. That are we'll have some allies you wouldn't expect on this, because it's a basic principle of fairness. You can't, boys against girls is not a fair thing, and you calling yourself a girl does not make you a girl. It just doesn't. You're still built like a boy, and the advantages can't be erased, right? I may have told this story before, but one year I coached girls basketball, and one year we signed up for this winter league, and the guy calls me and he says, there's only one other girls team that signed up, so either you can play in the boys league or we'll give your money back. So I thought, let's just play in the boys league and see what happens, right? And we didn't win a game, and we came close a couple of times. We did come close a couple of times, but the physical, it was a physical mismatch. Every rebound, like you get your hand on the ball, the guy gets his hand on the ball, whoop, you lose, right? They were longer than us. They were taller than us. They were, stronger than us. And it's like, you can win basketball games when that's going on, but it's very, very difficult. And so the last week of the season, we were supposed to play the other girls team, and neither one of us had won a game. And so we show up like way down in the hole in Alexandria to this gym, 8:00 on a Sunday morning, and the janitor didn't show up. So he came in later. So they said, we'll just start with the next game, and you guys don't worry about playing. So you weren't going to be in the playoffs anyway. So we never got to play the other girls team. And so the other funny thing that came out of that is, like, there was this one guy, we were playing this one game, and this guy, he would catch the ball, and like, we were pretty good at defense, right? We would scratch a claw you on defense. This one guy got the ball, and he would just go right through us and make a layup. So I finally called timeout. I'm like, what is the deal on number 15? Why can't we cover him? And one of the girls is like, Coach, that guy peed and pooped all in his pants before the game, and he smells so bad that we just can't stay in front of him. He says, what do you want us to do? I'm like, let him through.
That's so gross.
Yeah, it was gross. They called him Stinky. So, we are what we are.
Thanks for leaving that image in my mind. Great. All right. Well, anyway, so it looks good. Well, I guess that's a decision that we'll have at the end of the term, probably,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, so, and I think the people, the court watchers who are saying that we will prevail are correct.
Yeah. All right. Next item up is one that you brought to my attention at first, which was Steny Hoyer retiring.
Yeah. So like we saw him that day at the football game, right? Remember in the press?
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. For a Democrat, he's a decent guy. Yeah, that's right. That's one of the things I heard about this. What is this? Why is the Supreme Court, doing this? Right.
Right.
So because this should be obvious. It should not take the Supreme Court. But as for Steny, I worked with him when I was on the Hill on national capital issues. Right. The committee I was on, Oversight Government Reform. One of the few things we have legislative jurisdiction over. Home rule and all that kind of stuff. And so DC projects and stuff, we had to work with him. And most of the time I was up there, Democrats were in the majority. So he was the majority leader. And he was always a good guy to work with, a nice man. It's like, he was for what he was for. We were for what we were for. But some of these people you can work with, and some of these people you really can't. And he was one you really could work with. So, a kind of comity in Congress that's not often seen anymore. And I think the place will be poorer without.
Yeah, and the chances are he'll be replaced by somebody further to the left, I'm
Yeah,
sure.
banshee idiot. Sorry, I said it.
All right, last couple of things here, real quick. Gavin Newsom, who wants to be president. So the Service Employees International Union has put this. They're trying to get this proposal on the ballot to tax the billionaires on, like, I think what's like 5% of their assets and whatnot. Even Gavin Newsom sees this as a danger because the tech billionaires are already making plans to leave if they haven't left already.
Right.
Further drain on California that's already been suffering from net migration. But the Democrats, they never cease to try to tax the rich and then watch the rich just leave. I mean, we had this in Maryland, on a smaller amount on your income, but this is the assets. Okay, it's like these people worked hard for this, but and now you want to tax them on their assets. You've already taxed them on their income. Now you want to tax them on their assets to boot. It's like this is just outrageous. So now even Gavin Newsom is trying to find a way to defeat this so it doesn't get on the ballot in November. I think I think he wants to keep his presidential hopes alive for 2028. So it's interesting to see him do that. I don't know how firmly he believes this in his heart, but I think it's a political move on his part. It's like, California can't afford to lose these people.
Yeah, that's right. They can't afford to lose them. You have like school districts out there basically trying to go out of business because they don't have the money. They're losing. They're giving away their intellectual class. I mean, what you're left with is, farm workers and radical leftists who don't produce anything, right? And those people were depending on a tech class to keep that state afloat for the next generation, and they're not going to get it because they're taxing these people and they're going to lose them. And I will hand it to Newsom. It's like he really does do a good job of showing you the problems, the errors of liberal policy, left leading policy, right? He really does, it puts a big bright line exclamation point on it so that why not to do what he's saying to do. So I think that I can't believe they did that, and I can't believe that it will actually stay.
Yeah, and I think even if it gets on the ballot, I don't think it'll wind up passing. I just, California. I think even California voters are going to be saying, like, this is just a bridge too far. I mean, especially if some start to leave the state before the elections, before it even gets to qualify or whatever, they're already going to be voting with their feet, and that's good. That's part of their tax base, all kinds of stuff. Just bad, the ramifications for the state of California. All right, and finally, melancholy ending here to the show, but we want to give a rest in peace to Scott Adams, the cartoonist of Dilbert, one of the best cartoons that was ever penned. Just really poked fun at the office workers and all kinds of things like that. He had that. He drew that cartoon for about 34 years. So it's a pretty amazing run that he had. And he died from aggressive prostate cancer. So it kind of, every time I hear that, it's like, oh, that hits home. But boy, my prostate cancer radar is way up since I was diagnosed 2 years ago. I'm like, you mentioned certain words. I'm like, it's like, yeah, he's only 2 years older than I am, stuff like that.
Yeah. But so Trump helped him get an experimental treatment a few months ago, and it put it off. He thought he would not make it through May, and he made it to January. So, but it didn't cure it. Everything turned bad on him, and he had a doctor appointment like late in the year, December 30th or so, and they're like, and an R.I.P to Bob Weir, the Grateful Dead. Thanks, Charles, for not letting that go. I'm not a deadhead. Right. So Bob Weir was, one of the creative forces behind it. He was also he was kind of a jerk, and it was one of those creative jerks. And so they, like, if you read up on the history of the Grateful Dead, they tried to kick him out of the band like 3 or 4 times. And they could not find anybody willing to go tell him he was kicked out of the band. So they just sort of dropped the idea. I mean, this is the Grateful Dead. You know, you could say they, okay, never mind. You know, so, but yeah, but Tower, I thought Bob Weir did a better job than any of them of extending the tradition of Grateful Dead music with his solo projects and so forth. I was a big fan of his solo projects, probably more than Phil Lesh's and so forth, Mickey Hart and so forth. But that's just me. But we were talking about Scott Adams after Dilbert. He lost his syndication, you know, because of something he said in a podcast. If you go read it, it's like, why did he, you know, compared to what you hear today, he would not have lost anything anymore, right, for that statement. But, you know, he foretold the rise of Trump before anyone, right? He's like, this guy persuades better than the other people. When Trump was a distant, you know, afterthought of the 2016 primaries, he's like, he's going to win. And he did. And he learned how to, like, show Trump's persuasive tactics in motion. Like, he did more to kind of keep people informed of, like, how Trump was trying to persuade and how he used the different devices and so forth. He wrote books on persuasion, how to present yourself, how to gain advantage, like get the most out of yourself, your own potential, and so forth. Were bestsellers. Big contribution, I thought. You know, he tried to make things better, is what he said in his last message, and I think he probably did.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he probably knew that he had limited choices in terms of, you know, treatment at that point in time. If he had been diagnosed anywhere in stage 4, I mean, you can go, I think, to stage 5, but if he was in that stage 4 area and aggressive, then it becomes really problematic. There's not a lot of treatments, and experimental treatment is exactly that. I mean, I would suspect that Ryan Sandberg was somewhere in a similar boat.
Right.
That's why from the time that you hear about when they actually make a public announcement that they have been diagnosed to the time they pass, it's a relatively short period of time. So,
yeah,
I'm still kicking 2 years in, but hey,
you're rocking, man. You're tough. The other thing, the Supreme Court is, I guess we should see a tariff decision sometime this week. It was supposed to be Monday, then it was supposed to be today, maybe later today, maybe tomorrow, but the statute seems clear. I think that in the questioning, it's, you know, there was a lot of people who took shots at this, but, you know, the point that Gorsuch made was, you know, the statute says he can do it. You know, if the Congress wants to change the statute, they can, but, you know, according to the law as written right now, he's within the law to do what he's doing. So, you know, there was a lot of predictions he would lose. We haven't seen the decision. He seems to be trying to jawbone the court about it, even up to this very moment. So, you know, we'll see what happens on that. But I think he will win, but I could be wrong.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Well, thank you for joining us today. As always, please stay safe and stay well. Remember, we live in the greatest country in the world. Do not let anybody tell you otherwise. And as always, God bless America, and we will see you again next week.